Hello, I'm recording for Retrospin's reading, and this is because we have a stream issue, a quality issue on the stream, and so I'm going to upload these onto YouTube, and you'll be able to watch these once I do. We're getting a message right now about impulses and intention, and there's like a whole lot of depth here, and I wonder if we're even supposed to read about this. This is more of a thought experiment, or it's just kind of like, where do your intentions come from? Because it seems as though no matter what way you slice it, our intentions are kind of always outside of our awareness, and they only come into our awareness when we see something manifested in a form that we're aware of as desirable or undesirable. Now, Retrospin's question is maybe not a question, but there's just more of an acknowledgement that we had a reading last week, and the reading seemed to be intensely accurate to the day. We had a day kind of in the reading. Wednesday was the day, and there was a "they are coming for you" message, and somebody came for Retrospin on Wednesday. I think it was as soon as. So Retrospin, you're probably at the kind of the head end of this energy where we might see a lot of resonance over the next month or so. Hi, Dre. Hello. I'm just recording this reading. So I'm going to keep on going with this spread. I kind of explained this a little bit, but it feels to me like we're supposed to go somewhere else, Retrospin. Like this will be involved in some way of like, just keep in mind that our intentions, as much as we can kind of fool ourselves into believing that we have conscious intentions, for some reason, no matter what way we slice it, when we head into the darkness or we do something impulsive, we still have, no matter what comes of our impulsive acts, we still have a very kind of like acute awareness of whether or not what the outcomes align with our intentions. Even though we've done something impulsive and we didn't know how it was going to turn out, we didn't make a plan, intentions aren't plans that we made. There's a little bit of evidence in that our intentions are set by a plan that is made outside of our awareness. But, call that what you will. It's like logical evidence, circumstantial evidence. We'd like to see concrete evidence as well. Can't just make a case based on circumstantial evidence, can we? Sometimes we do. There's a message here for you, Retrospin, about resisting the purest of your own intentions. And we've been diving into the darkness tonight. We've been kind of presenting ourselves with challenges. And anybody can take something out of this reading. So if you're watching this or you're watching this later down the road on YouTube, just, take what you will out of this. It's just a thought experiment. It's just a place to go, a way to dig in if you want to shed some light on something. And it's perfectly fine to shed some light on this and say not me. And that's cool. It's totally cool. Nobody's forced to do anything. If only we could force ourselves, eh? But it seems as though we can't force ourselves to have intentions outside of where the purest of our intentions are. It looks to me like you have some intentions that you resist impulsively. There's something of it being a reflection. Something of a reflection, kind of like how it's like symmetry. This is like a bird with two wings, and then I'm imagining, okay, so, even you take the human form or something like that, like two hands, they're at a certain point we're split in two. We don't have two of everything, but certain parts we have two of. But not everybody, because not everybody's born with two hands. Not everybody's born with two eyes. One nose, two nostrils. One mouth. But two sets of teeth. And there being like a mirror image. A mirror image. And it's like being right-handed. Oh, that's so funny. What is so funny about that is that I just kind of like, I was thinking about how right-handed I am, because it would be really convenient if I could use my left hand on the computer, which I'm doing right now. I wouldn't be visible on the screen, that I'd be clicking away at the computer. But here I have to, and I'm so right-handed. I'm so hopelessly right-handed that I was just like, no, this is so much easier. I want to do this. So I don't care if my arm is blocking all the cards. It's like being right-handed or leaning toward. And so it looks as though I'm getting something about maybe there's like conscious intentions, and then I'm calling this purest intentions, because they're these intentions that come out that we didn't even know we had, but we can, it's like you can deduce that you have them, because, or it's like induction, right? Like you see that result and automatically it weighs against intentions you didn't even know that you had. So if I was to like kind of like see what was going on over here on like the left hand side of this mirror image, look at that, the 9 of Pentacles. Huh. You're independent. Nothing came of that. And the 5 of Swords. If I'm going to make a mirror image of that, it's going to look a little something like that. Follow me on this. It might be a bit difficult if the image is cutting in and out, but definitely come back to the YouTube version, because this is a very visual one. It's like we're being asked to divide this and to kind of like imagine these are two sides of the same, and they fold together like this. They would fold together. They would become one. Interesting when we say to becoming one, that we place our hands together like this in prayer. It's like, it's kind of like a thing to do, right? To have this like prayer stance for some people. And that's not an accident. That this is not an accident. The King of Rods is integrity. The 5 of Swords is regret. The 9 of Pentacles is independence. The Knight of Swords is impulse. Well, Knight of Wands is really more impulse. Knight of Swords is kind of more egoic impulse, or basically drive. Let's call it drive. 5 of Rods is resistance, and 8 of Rods is intention. And if we were to put these together like this, what we have kind of in unity or a pairing, what we're ending up with is integrity in your intentions. We have regret in your resistance. We have independence in your drive. There's a drive for independence that's quickly met. With a regret for the resistance that's required, probably, to maintain your independence. And then we have, ultimately, your integrity standing up, you consciously standing up for the purest of your intentions anyway. This looks to me like just basically the human condition, in a bit more of a specific kind of way. Everybody has their own human condition, and this might be yours in a sense of like your kind of like struggle right now might have something to do with a drive to be for independence that is quickly met with a regret for the resistance that you would have to put up in order to maintain your independence or maintain your drive to be independent. And there's like this kind of message of hope on the bookends here, which is basically, this is kind of like a mixed bag, I would say. It probably feels really good to be driven to do things on your own and to figure things out and to be your own person and to take care of yourself and to make sure that you and everyone around you even maybe is, you know, doing all right. But at the same time, there's something of resisting the purest of your intentions in here. For some reason, your independence drives you to resist your own intentions. And I would say it's probably because, like, we're all here on this planet to take care of each other. I'm just going to put that out there. Like, the purest of intentions is that we're all here to be stewards of this universe, you know? We're all here to take care of the universe. If we're really going to get into it, we've been talking about light and dark, and we go on these extreme versions of light, and we had a reading where over here it's like, this is oneness with everything. This is, if we're going to talk about merging with a lover, if we're going to talk about supporting one particular person, if we're going to bring that into our awareness, we have to be kind of like ready to merge with the entire universe then, because that's really what it is, like in a healthy way. If we're going to be like really buying into this idea that we are to connect with people at that level and that depth and really supporting people to the point where we're carrying them along sometimes, that's not something that we get to choose to do in some circumstances and not others consciously. Consciously, we might have excuses or whatever, you know, I only have so many hours in a day or whatever it is like that. But let's just go a bit further and say that independence feels right until it doesn't feel right. Independence feels great until it doesn't. And that's because while our independence might drive us, it also drives us away from what we know we're here to do. We know we're here to connect. We know we're here to integrate our lives with other people's lives and to integrate our lives with nature and to integrate our lives with our environments and with all of our experiences. We know that we're here to do that. We don't have to. It's just obvious, you know? It's just obvious that that's what it's about. And that for some reason we can't explain what that is. It's one of those, it's the purest of our intention. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all live in harmony? I don't think anybody would ever argue with that. You know, there is something to be said for that thing of too many whites on the teeth. You know, it gets to be a bit creepy, like Teletubbies, like, you know, when we get too positive-minded or something, or we get too many rainbows going at the same time. There is something wonderful about being in this space between light and dark, to be digging into our darkness just as much as we're experiencing the pureness of light. And let's just say that this is kind of a natural progression. It's an option among many options. If you ever thought that your independence would ever drive you away from your ability to connect, make no mistake, because you have a mirror image available to you. And you might see that your drive for independence, or the way that your independence drives you, has you resisting your purest of intentions. But let's just say that might just be your perception from an egoic perspective. Because what I'm seeing here is that the purest of intentions are resisting your drive for independence. And that expresses consciously as regret. And regret expresses or results in a return to what you already knew was the truth anyway. I hope that makes sense. I know that I've kind of been a bit vague and ethereal or philosophical or whatever, but there's something in here. There's so much in this mirror image. The idea that we can deduce or we can actually recognize that some of the undesirable things that we experience consciously can be a reflection of the resistance that we're experiencing unconsciously. But just because there's resistance unconsciously, that doesn't mean we have to overcome the darkness. That doesn't mean that we have to conquer this darkness or that the whole idea is to bring it all to light. There's something to having faith in the way that you return to yourself anyway, and you return to who you know you're supposed to be anyway. That if you're recognizing resistance in the darkness, that there's something. Let me put a concrete example on this. 9 of Pentacles is independence, right? And you're driven. It drives you. And it's an unconscious drive. You're not sure why you have this drive. You just know that you like being independent. But there's something of you get all this kind of and you get all set up to be independent, and then all of a sudden you're met with some kind of resistance, or you feel it's it doesn't feel right. There's something about it not feeling right at a certain point. It's this strange kind of paradox where it both kind of motivates you, but it also kind of doesn't feel right. And I want to be alone, but I really don't feel like I should be alone. That kind of thing here. And the point of all of this is about this resistance. It's about where this resistance is coming from. That we can have this egoic perspective. We can have this kind of self-focused perspective. It's the idea that we procrastinate in here. It would be a great example. Procrastination. We know that we're driven by our independence, but we procrastinate giving ourselves opportunities to be independent. And procrastination results in some form of regret. And but not regret that you were never independent. It's kind of maybe more recognition. Rather than it being that you consciously decide to regret, it's you experience regret. And the procrastination that you experience in the dark, it's kind of what drives you gets kind of resisted, and you don't have the kind of motivation to accomplish this independence, but as it expresses as regret, loneliness. As much as I'm driven to be alone, I get lonely. And you know what, at the end of the day, if I was to count all the days that I ever experienced loneliness and that resulted in me deciding that I should be more independent, and I was to count all the days where I experienced loneliness and that took me to a place where I recognized that I'm actually meant to connect with people, this reading is kind of saying that there's the purest of our intentions here are working for us, and sometimes they provide resistance to the things that we feel compelled to do before we've seen it through to the end. Independence is great to have, and soon you'll be met with loneliness. and it's almost like it's taking care of itself. That wouldn't it be great if I could be independent and not lonely? Wouldn't that be just so perfect? Because I really like this feeling of being driven by my own independence. Like I want to be free. I don't want to have anything tying me down. And it feels good to say that. And it feels good to be empowered in my independence. But then I get lonely. I'm just repeating the message over and over again until it kind of lands, and maybe it already landed 5 minutes ago. I wish I could express this more clearly of how awesome this is, this Eight of Rods here with this King of Rods in this mirror image kind of way. It's like the thumbs. It's the opposable thumbs of the reading. 2 thumbs up over here with these with these 2 cards. The Eight of Rods, makes a statement that while you might perceive that you're met, or that your drive to be independent is resisting basically like your human need for connection or something, and it's like, wouldn't it be great if I didn't have that human need for connection, because then I could pursue this kind of much more intentional and much more in control feeling I have when I'm trying to be independent. But what if it was the other way around? Or maybe it's both at the same time. What if there is the purest of our intentions that are resisting how independence drives us? What if this is part of the plan right here? What if part of the plan that they're speaking of, like, so religious people, or like Christian religious people, will say something about God's plan, right? What if it's part of God's plan to resist your drives? To induce some form of regret at some period of time. And as much as this doesn't feel good in the moment, it ultimately takes you back to who you already know you are anyway. There's something about witnessing. So like I'm getting into like, Christian kind of talk right now, and I'll let that happen because this kind of works really well in this spread. Right here, we're witnessing the glory of God. Is it right here? Like this is like an expression of the glory of God. That even though we've been through things that didn't feel good, contradictions in our life that feel terrible. It feels terrible to want to be independent, but to get lonely and to have to sacrifice our independence for connection. And then it feels wonderful again once we've connected to remember that something beyond even our darkness has our back. That in those moments where we're desiring something that is really against the plan, it's like stuff is happening in the dark that prevents us almost from steering off of our course. And this is actually an expression of you can't go wrong. You really can't go wrong, because even if you try with all of your might and all of your independent will to take yourself off this course, there will be a force greater than your resistance that will always steer you back to where you're meant to go. And that it's okay. It's actually in this moment where we have this experience where we're regretting our condition as a human being, where we have this drive to be independent, but we also have a need for connection. And it's really unfortunate, we might say, that this silly need for connection is preventing me from seeing my independence all the way through. It's actually in this moment where we have this strain, that we experience this strain so that we can witness the support when we finally do remember who we are and why we need to connect. And it takes experiencing a connection in order for that to, activate. The remembering happens in the connection. It takes experiencing that connection and with a very keen awareness backing you up here, that it was really a struggle to get to this place, that the struggle becomes the evidence to you that there's a force greater than your will at times that will take you where you need to go when your will tries to take you away. This is like God's got your back energy. If you're experiencing discomfort of your human condition, this kind of conflict between independence and connection, if anybody's resonating with this, this can be just basically a message for you that this is exactly part of where our purest of intentions lead us. It's kind of like we have to go through this part in order to get to this place where we have the experience to appreciate connection when we feel it, and to appreciate what it means to connect. There's a choice that's being made here, I can tell. I'll grab a card for up here, and I'll grab a card for up here, and that's about it. See if anybody has any messages for you from these realms. Six of Rods. Yay, you did it. Four of Cups. Okay. The message is oh, this is such a cool way to say this. I always have to laugh when the cards do this. It gives like this kind of like, I get sent on this goose chase around the cards, and then I go like, oh, wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Basically what I see is this Eight of Rods being the purest of intentions, or maybe some people might even say this is God, okay? And call this whatever you'd like to call it, and if you don't want to go there, don't go there. Nobody goes there anyway, because nobody can actually witness God. It's kind of one of those things where it's not something that people can experience directly like that. We wouldn't be able to go dig down deep into the darkness and pull out God and shine it in front of the light over here and like, what are you looking like, God? Because that actually puts us in a God position where we're holding God in our hands, and then we are greater than God, and then that ends up being kind of a contradiction. And so we can't even imagine a God while we imagine the experience of plucking God out of the darkness of our awareness, like in bringing God into our awareness. We can't imagine a God and also imagine being fully aware of a God. We can't. It contradicts itself. So it doesn't matter in this reading anyway, whether or not you perceive of a God in this area. Even if you did, it's not something that would have been spoken to you directly. God would have even tried to speak to you with feeling, that you might even be able to feel the presence of God, and you probably wouldn't accept it, even if it was to come your way. Because it's like we can't even imagine. And it sometimes takes imagining to dig into the darkness, right? Like imagining is a great way. Creativity, like, doing some form of art form, like where we're bringing out something that we didn't know we had in us. That's a great way to dig into the darkness without speaking to it directly. And this is exactly what we're talking about here. God wouldn't be able to speak to you directly like that, if that's what we're talking about. So it's not a matter of whether or not God exists. doesn't matter, because in this reading, it's not a communication direct like that. What's expressed here is in the form of a feeling of, I know I'm doing it right. I know I'm doing it. It's going to come to you in a sense that everything is in its right place. 6 of Wands. This is like 6 of Rods in this deck, I guess. This is success. This is, I feel like I'm doing it. I feel right. Everything in its right place. Everything is lining up. Everybody seems to be cheering me on. This seems to be in alignment. It feels in alignment. So it's all this stuff that just kind of like, it's based on feeling almost, but it's more in what seems like. It's very intentions based. It seems like the right way to go. For some reason, I just know. So the message for you, if this is from whatever being or energy that sources these intentions that are kind of detectable anyway, even though we don't know where they come from. The message is that they would never speak to you directly anyway, so we don't need to wonder where they come from. I mean, we can wonder all we want, and we're just going to start running into these paradoxes that are hilarious, and they're a source of good fun. But also, we kind of already know that we're not going to be explaining who is God, right? And God isn't going to be doing any explaining, even in the form of feeling, even in the form of presence. God is going to be doing explaining in your life via that sense that everything's in its right place, that everything's working right. That moment when you have a regret for your need for connection, and maybe your resistance to connections doesn't hold up, and you kind of take that leap and you connect anyway, and then you realize that this is where I'm supposed to go. This feels like home. As much as it might feel like you're gaining total awareness in that moment, if you maintain your awareness in this moment right now, Retrospin, when you're reconnecting and recognizing what connection this connection is for you. Keep yourself grounded. Don't be hard on yourself, and there's a recognition here that just because, I'm going to say God here, but take this for whatever you want, okay? Just because God didn't tell you explicitly that you deserve it. God told you implicitly, through this feeling, that this is the right way to go. This deeper knowing. Trust it. Trust your instincts. Trust the difference between this feeling and the drive feeling. Driven toward independence is based on certain things, and this feeling is a whole different thing. Trust that this is the communication, that you deserve it, that this is meant for you. You're a smart person, so it's kind of difficult to let our logic, logic is one thing, and we don't want to go forward without evidence. We don't like just having circumstantial evidence. We need to see concrete evidence. that there's a communication, that we deserve something. The whole idea of collecting concrete evidence that we deserve something, as like they're patches on a sash that we wear. I don't know, I remember being in the Girl Guides when I was younger, and I had this sash and I had these patches that proved that I was at camp, or that I learned to tie a certain knot, and that's all great and everything, to have all this evidence and all these medals, war medals, you know, all things, the evidence that you did all these things on your own. But isn't it strange that that's what we look for? Isn't this the most hilarious part? There's this like drive to prove that we're alone. And as hard as we try to prove that we're alone, we just can't seem to shake the implicit evidence that we're not. I don't know. This kind of went to a really deep place, didn't it? I'm going to stop recording now. So thanks so much for watching this reading. Anybody on YouTube, and hopefully you enjoyed it. It's getting later here, so maybe I'm getting a little bit spaced out or whatever, but this is kind of fun stuff. I like talking about this stuff. I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.